So good afternoon. My task is to give some comments to the artistic research project, Music with the Real. And I would like to make 3 points. I would first like to discuss the context of this research project. Then I will discuss in detail the examples. And at the end, you probably expect from me a critical note. So I start with the context. The title, Music with the Real, is in a way a little bit problematic because you could say any music has to deal and to do with the real. Even a symphony from Beethoven can refer to the French Revolution. So my task will be to clarify this idea, how music relates here to reality and to the real. And we have had a discussion since 2008 in Germany about the influence of the digital revolution on the artistic practice of new music. And here I published a book, a music philosophy, The Digital Revolution of Music, a music philosophy. And in this book I introduced a notion because I think the digital revolution will trigger a paradigm shift from absolute music toward, so I call it, relational music. And this notion of relational music I would like to introduce to you because I think the notion is helpful in order to understand how this artistic project works in another way with reality. So not only classical music, but also the new music or the mainstream of new music in the 20th century followed the idea of absolute music. And that means that the real music or the true music was understood as pure instrumental music. So that is music without any relationship to language, movement, visual images, feelings. You probably know this famous formulation or phrase from Edward Hanslick, music is sonically moving forms. And this idea disconnects music from any relation to the world or almost to any relation towards the world. The notion blocks the references to the so-called extra-musical material or events. But that is not the whole story. There, of course, is some kind of reference left, but that is the blind spot behind the idea of absolute music. And this relation between music and the world in the idea of absolute music is, in a way, a metaphor for the universe. So you have a reference between the structure of music and the structure of the world, and you could say that is a metaphysical leftover. Today, the situation is changing. It is changing because the digital revolution triggers really a shift in the musical practice and hence also in the self-description of new music. There is much more cheap technology available which composers can use, as you have seen, in order to combine music with text, images, videos, and concepts, and so on. So the computer is, in a way, a universal interface to compose what I would call relational music. So the result is we have new music which works with extra musical information in a new way, and the relation between music and world, or in other words, the relation between music and reality, is no longer abstract but precise. One can use specific references of the extra musical material in order to create a specific experience of the world. So, and the most important aspect is that relational music is any music that has a relation between music and the so-called extra musical material, but it has the quality of alterity. This extra musical material keeps the quality of otherness. You understand that if you look back how, under the idea of absolute music, composers used this extra musical material. Let's take Lehmann, Zwei Gefühle. He used language, a text from Leonardo da Vinci, but he decomposed language in syllables. So he musicalized the extra musical material. Although, let's take Maurizio Kagel. He always combined music pieces with stage performances, with movement. But the movement and the music has been synchronized. Again, that is a way to musicalize the extra musical material. Or let's take musique concrète. Pierre Schaeffer used extra musical sound sources, so everyday noise, for instance, but he composed in a traditional way with this extra musical sound material so that it became a musical structure, and all kind of references to the world have been deleted through the process of composing. So that means the mysterious real in this project, Music with the Real, is the alterity of the extra musical material or of the extra musical dimension. That is my main thesis. And now I would like to discuss some examples. And I think there are at least 4 major relational music strategies: visualization, sonification, semanticization, and theatralization. You can discuss the examples from the project in relation to these strategies, and a very important strategy is in a way sonification, because everything today is available in a set of data, and any data you can transform in sound waves. So for even gravitation waves today, or electrocardiograms, or the stock market. But I think it is helpful to use the notion of sonification in a more broader sense, and I would like to include all strategies where extra musical sound material is included in a musical composition. So there are, of course, predecessors like composing with pre-recorded sound with samples of popular music and with samples of everyday life or noise. And one piece, the first piece I want to analyze is Matthew Shlomowitz's Royalty Free, and he said in the text, "It seems my work is textbook in postmodernism." And I would like to assure him that at least this composition is not textbook postmodernism. So first of all, if you really would quote famous popular songs, the piece would not be royalty free. But the reason is that he uses a sample of everyday sounds and noises which keeps this quality of alterity. So if you hear the samples, you hear the dog, you hear the child, the electric drill, the whistle, the laughter of a man.
Capital. Sierra.
My next example is an example for semanticization, which works with semanticization, and it's a piece from Henrik Helstenius. This piece is, in my opinion, on the edge between relational music and absolute music. So one can recognize single words in different languages. So Henrik does not compose like Helmut Lachenmann. He doesn't dissolve the words, so they keep their semantic meaning, but the words don't bind together to the meaning of a sentence. I think Henrik is much more interested in the aesthetic dimension of the words, and so his composition waves the sound of the words together with the sound of the instruments.
Есть треугольник АБЦ, который равен...
Regardez. De la part...
Вы же не станете спорить, что...
Да, спорит.
Sind Sie immer noch auf Ziele im Blick?
Still.
Awake.
Freude.
Man.
Vielleicht.
Have not. Are losing.
My next example works with a relational music strategy of visualization. It's one section of Johannes Kreidler's fantasies of downfall. And here Kreidler combines visual lines with melodic lines. But I was wondering when I saw the piece, because the melodic line goes up and the visual line goes down. And I asked Johannes Kreidler in an email, why is this the case? Did I miss the joke? And he wrote me back that he wanted to compose a counterpoint, but it didn't work out and he wants to revise the piece. And I think that is a good point of a research project, because it is not clear how you can use compositional tools if you compose relational music, if you really combine it with the visual dimension. And that is, in a way, an experiment. The last example is an example for theatralization, Carola Baukol's piece OIC. So the main stage props are two big balls or balloons which hold two players on their knees, like you see this here on the sketch of the score. And these two balls undergo a very interesting metamorphosis. So I prepared now a video clip of 6 parts where you can observe the metamorphosis. First, you have the pure objects on the stage. Second, these objects transfer in musical instruments and drums. Then these musical instruments become two big eyes, but they don't move. On the fourth stage, the eyes fulfill their perceptual function. If our attention apparatus works in a way that if we hear suddenly a noise, we turn our perception to this noise source. And that's exactly what happens in the piece. And then you have a fifth stage where the music events are so complex that you cannot define a direction where the noises come from. So you have two eyes, in a way, the two eyes are open and listening to the music. And in the last stage, the eyes start to move in the rhythm of the drums. So I think that is a very nice piece, because it's in a way a self-reflexive piece of relational music. So the stage design looks like a face that observes what's going on the stage. So at the end, my critical note, we can say that the reality to which this artistic research project, Music with the Real, refers is the reality of the extra musical material in relational music. But this notion of reality is, of course, a very limited notion of reality. Usually you would think reality has to do with our social reality, with the reality of the society, of our culture, or maybe with some political issues, or with our life experience, existential experience. But so music with the real does not really refer to this reality in the common sense. Relational music is, without any doubt, a very advanced art movement in new music today. But it is not the solution to the most fundamental problem which new music faces today. And this problem is an innovation dilemma. New music defines itself by the value of newness, and that meant in the 20th century new sound and new experience and in listening experiences. And you could say that new music always followed the idea of a material progress. And this material progress came to an end. So the solution would be that new music finds a new way to redefine this idea of newness and new. So to redescribe the value of newness. And I always suggest here in this place that it should be not new, the newness of new music should not be defined by new material, but by new Gehalt. And Gehalt is a German word for content, but it is a special content. It is a content which you gain through an interpretation of an artwork. And here you will have no limitations. So we live in a world which is always changing, and the arts and music can always relate to the changing situation of our life world, of our society. So that is, in this way, you can solve the innovation dilemma of new music. And the relational music is now especially attractive for new music, I think, because it promises a way to solve this innovation dilemma, but it is only an immediate step in this paradigm shift from material aesthetic to Gehalt-aesthetic. It is not by itself the solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.